Eternal life is a free gift from God. Jesus died for you at Calvary. He is the way, the truth, the life, the door. If you believe in Him, you shall be saved, 'cause God's free gift to you is eternal life through Jesus Christ the Lord.
Turn our Bibles to 1 Kings chapter 21. Now we need to read the whole chapter, but I'm not going to take time to do that right now. But there are three characters in whom we're going to read about. One is Naboth, the other is Ahab, and the other is Jezebel. Now let's take a look at verse 1 of chapter 21. And it came to pass, after these things, that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. Now notice the first few words there, and it came to pass after these things. Now when you read that, it tells you that something happened before. In the Bible, you sometimes find chapters beginning with an and. Now you know, if any of you do English, you don't start a chapter with and. You don't start with a but. You never use a conjunction. A conjunction is like an and or but or however. You don't start a sentence that way, but the Bible does. Because actually the original, when the writers wrote the Bible, like Matthew, Mark, Luke and John and the other writers, they didn't write in chapters, they just wrote the whole book. It was later on that chapters were added. But the original writers did not read the whole of the, did not write chapters. They did not write verse 1, verse 2, verse 3. They just wrote. So it tells us, in order to understand what is happening here, we need to understand what precedes. And it came to pass after these things. So in this record of events surrounding Naboth, we see desire leading to an obsession that eventually led to murder. It started with a desire, it became an obsession, and it led to murder. We learn about a man that refused to sell. A man that refused to sell. Now, to get the background of this, from verse 21, we need to go to chapter 20. Now, what had happened here was Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, had besieged Samaria. And we read that in 20 and verse 1. And Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts together, and there were 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots, and he went and besieged Samaria and warred against it. They were under siege. And this is what Ben-Hadad told Ahab. In verse 2, and he sent messengers to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city, and said, Thus saith Ben-Hadad, Thy silver and thy gold is mine, thy wives also, and thy children, and even the godliest are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, My lord, O king, according to thy sayings I am lying, and all that I have. Now you might think, what a weak man here. Here is Ben-Hadad saying, I want your wives, I want your children, and Ahab says, okay, they're yours. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone says, I want your wife, I'm going to say, over my dead body. But he said, no, all that I have is Lord, come and get it. Now, one of the things you will learn is, when you give way to the devil, he'll always want more and more. The more a government bows down to homosexuals, the more demands the homosexuals will make. The more a country gives into Islam, the more Islam will demand. I have watched over the years the so-called peace discussions with Israel and the Middle East. And it always boils down to this thing. How much Israel can give up and how much the Arabs can take. And when they give up a little bit, they want a bit more discussions. We want this, we want that. Now they're demanding the temple. You see, you cannot give, the moment you give in, more demand will be put upon you. And we see this in verse 5. And the messengers came again, saying, Thus speaketh Ben-Hadad, saying, Although I have sent unto thee, saying, Thou shalt deliver me thy silver and thy gold and thy wives and thy children, yet I will send my servants unto thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search all thine house, and the houses of thy servants, and it shall be that whatsoever is pleasant in thine eyes, they shall put it in their hand and take it away. And the king of Israel called the elders of the land and said, Mark, I pray thee, and see how this man seeketh mischief. For he hath sent unto me for my wives, and for my children, and for my silver, and I denied him not. Now isn't it interesting? He didn't get upset when they demanded his wives. He didn't get upset when he demanded his children. But when they said, we're coming to your house and see whatever we want, then Ahab gets upset. Now most of us, it'll be the other way round. Take anything I've got but leave my wife and children. Finally, Ahab realises that nothing he does will satisfy Ben-Hadad. You see, the more you give in to the flesh, the more you give in to sin, the more sin will roll over you. Have you ever seen a person that will not train a dog? And when it's a puppy, they'll take the dog for a walk. But because they haven't trained that dog, you see, when the dog gets older, it's not the owner taking the dog for a walk, it's the dog taking the owner for a walk. He's pulling and pulling and pulling. Many years ago, I used to have a big Alsatian. And it was a vicious Alsatian. And we kept it in the garden. Whenever we had guests, we kept it in the garden because he would come in and growl at people and jump at people. So we kept him in the garden. And all went well. Until one day that dog learned how to open the back door. He jumped up, put his paw on the handle, and all of a sudden we had guests, and the dog had jumped up, and all of a sudden the dog walks in and starts growling. Well, you see, sin is like that. It gets bigger, it grows into a monster, and you can't train it. And first of all, you might be doing things in your life that are not there, and you might be able to keep it hidden for a while, but it's growing into a monster. And eventually it will come out and show itself to your family, to your friends, and to the church. How many of you know that there are ministers that get caught in acts of sin? But you see, that the day they got caught wasn't the day they started doing it. They've been doing it for months. But eventually it was growing into a monster. And eventually it will expose itself. Because sin will not, the devil will not take second place. He will keep demanding, oh, just this, just do this, just do that, just do this, just do that.